Okay, so
Misty, my internet is really bad over here, so I'll do what I can.
okay. Well, if you have to, you come sit at my table.
Okay, I may do that.
You can be the voice from behind.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so oh no, I didn't want that to happen. Hold on. All right, can you still see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
We're just gonna have to do it this way. All right, so I know Tamara, but I don't know the other two who've jumped on. I would love to know what departments you're in. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to.
Casey, do you want to share?
Yeah, I was trying to turn my camera on and I'm having technical difficulties. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in psychology and counseling. So I teach graduate counseling students in clinical mental health.
Awesome. Great. Glad you're with us.
And Casey, you're new full-time this semester, right?
Yes, this is my first semester full-time. I was adjunct last year, but yep, I'm new this year.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And then is it Tuka?
Yes, it's Tuka.
Okay, excellent.
What department are you in, Tuka? There's
So
Casey.
I'm in the Department of Pharmacy, and I actually just started yesterday. So I'm pretty new here as a fellow, a pharmacy fellow.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Welcome to you as well.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I love
So-
this. Get some professional learning like right away.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, and Tamara, how long have you been at Lipscomb?
30 years.
I was going to say, I think you hold the crown here in this group. Tamara's in the biology department. So, but I'm Misty Parsley. I'm in the College of Education, and I'm in my 10th year. So I feel like I've been here forever now. And then Robbie is also a faculty member in the in the College of Education. And are we on 5 years, Robbie?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So we are happy to be here today to talk about universal design for learning. And this is, with this being a small group, would love to just have conversation, discussion about this. And I've done this several times in the past for faculty, and it's much easier to do in person. I just have to really be honest. I mean, we do a lot of modeling of strategies when we're in person. We're going to try to do some of that today and talk through some of these. But I think that the most important thing to realize, and this is always tricky for us because Robbie and I both are special ed people, but this is not about people with disabilities. That's not what UDL is about. And so we want to get rid of that stigma from the very beginning, that this is only for individuals with disabilities. It is very helpful for individuals with disabilities. And we know that we have a lot of individuals with disabilities in our classes, students with ADHD, students with anxiety disorder, students with other, mental health issues, all kinds of things that this is helpful for. But this is also just helpful for students with different learning styles and students who perform better in certain activities than they do in others. And so UDL is about really the very broad basic definition of UDL is making sure every student in your class can learn. I mean, isn't that what we want for all of our students, right? So the other thing I want to say is I do not consider myself an expert at UDL, especially at the college level, because it's hard. And it's hard to always be thinking about, have I designed this so that everyone can participate meaningfully and learn from this? And so I love doing this presentation just because it gives me a refresher and it reminds me of, oh yeah, I could do that, and I could do that. And I get great ideas from other faculty across campus who've done these things.
And the more that we do with UDL, the less that we've got to do accommodations and modifications for those individuals who do have, disabilities of one type or another. So it truly is beneficial for everyone in the classroom.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing that's, I think, a little tough about UDL is that it does require self-reflection. It does require you to say, how am I doing this and could I do it better? And even though we all say that we want to do that, sometimes that's hard. Sometimes to look back and go, oh man, I really messed that one up. I need to redo that assignment or fix that, or, whatever. And so this whole series, and we're going to explain at the end that, we've got several more series to this, or several more parts to, oh no, I hit the wrong button. Hold on. No, quit. Okay, sorry. Don't install anything right now. We want to, and now see, I totally lost my train of thought. We've got several more parts to this. We're going to break each of these down, but we want to just provide an overview today of the concepts of UDL. So, and also for those of you who don't know, Robbie and I, we share the same brain. We're two halves. I have a half and she has a half. So we pretty much just jump in and contribute to each other's thoughts. So don't be alarmed by that if we interrupt each other, even, because we're very comfortable with that. So, okay. All right. So our learning objectives today are, we're going to understand the concept of universal design for learning, gain ideas for implementing universal design for learning, and hopefully do a little collaboration with our colleagues today. Okay, so this should be showing one at a time, but because I can't show my screen the way I want to, you see all the questions, but we're just going to do one at a time. If we were in person, one activity we would do is a dry erase board. So what I want you to do, you have two choices, which is also a UDL concept. You may either chat, you may either write in the chat window, or you can write on a piece of paper at your desk, and you can hold up the answer so everyone can see. Okay. So the first question is, how do you learn best? So either write it on paper and hold it up, or write in the chat window.
Sorry, I'm yelling.
While you yell, I'm going to turn my fan on because Ezel is like stifling today.
Oh, I'm at 57. No, 59. I've come up.
Oh my goodness.
I was going to say, Misty's turning her fan on and I have my sweater on.
Yeah, so two sides of the hallway, and I get all the heat and Robbie apparently gets all the air. Okay.
Primarily, there you go.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What % of your class is lecture? So just take one of your classes, or if you're not, Tuka, since you're new, if you want to think about how you think you would teach, what % of your class is lecture? This is not a judgment question. This is just to get you thinking. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Lots of ranges there.
Mm-hmm.
What does the U in UDL stand for? Easy, because y'all can see it. But okay, give one example of UDL in the classroom, if you know one, or take a guess. I like how y'all use your resources. Awesome.
Great job.
Yeah, great. Very good. So, and we're just for time's sake, we're not going to do the last one, but so a pre-assessment is a great tool for lots of reasons. And I think combining pre-assessment with some UDL strategy. So again, giving options. You can write on your dry erase board. You can write on an index card, a Post-it note. You know, gives you the information that you need, but also gives students choices. This is also a great way to assess, you know, where your students are on a new topic. But some of our students don't want to talk out in class, and they might have a lot of knowledge, but they don't necessarily want to speak out. And so using the dry erase board, and see, the cool thing, if we were in a classroom right now and we had dry erase boards, no one would see the answers but me. There you go, Tamara's got one, yay!
I have a whole set.
Yes, so those little mini ones,
Yay.
and you can buy a class set of dry erase boards. You also can go, if you have someone handy, or if you yourself are handy,
Mhm.
you can go and get a big sheet of it from Home Depot or whatever and cut it into pieces. But that way, if I'm at the front of the class and I'm looking at all the dry erase boards coming up, the other students aren't seeing. And so I'm not necessarily correcting answers at that moment, but I'm making note of who knows and who doesn't and what do I need to target. But I'm not, nobody has to be wrong out loud. And I think that's you know, some of our students don't necessarily, oh, well, okay, none of us really like to be wrong out loud, right? Let's be honest there.
Misty, I did want to mention, one of the reasons why I had to put 95% is because I'm teaching in Ward Lecture Auditorium, and I'm also teaching in Collins Alumni Auditorium. And in neither of those, they're conducive to doing what I would normally do in a smaller classroom.
Yeah,
And so it makes a huge difference.
yeah,
Also, I have students who are in-house and students who are online.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tamara, I'm the same way. You know, I've got a large class this semester that I'm teaching for the first time, and it's a much larger group. And, you know, the content of that course versus some of my special education courses, you know, it's very different in my teaching style between those two classes or those two groups.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want you to take a look at this picture, and just, this is a think, pair, share. So I want you to just think for a minute about what this picture means to you. And then, since we're a small group, we'll just share, see if anyone wants to share. While you're looking at this, I want to point out at the bottom of this slide, I have what learning objective we're working on. I actually learned that technique from Hope Nordstrom, present in the room, in one of the CTL sessions I attended in the past. And I don't use it a lot, but I do love the strategy, because if you have a student who maybe struggles to follow along, that kind of gives them the information of, okay, here's what we're working on right now. Here's where in my brain I need to store that information. And so I wanted to point out that strategy as well. All right, take a minute and look at these three. You've probably seen this before, so. What do you think about when you look at these three pictures? Who thinks about the Dodgers? Anybody? Timely.
I think about equality
Okay. Sure.
and how to develop that equality for all.
Great.
To make sure that we are taking care from the least to those who shouldn't be in the class. They actually perform much better, and they would be better in a higher class. And I say least, meaning those with the least knowledge coming into the class. They don't have the foreknowledge, or because not everybody went to the same high school. Not everybody was in the same school system. So the little guy down there, yeah, I was looking at all three and it's like, well, what would you do? And I said, well, I'm going to remove the whole fence and just leave the little mottled fence, because then everybody's got the same sight.
Yep.
And nobody has to worry about climbing up on a box, especially when you don't have the little legs to do so.
So that'd be me, the little short one. And I'd look at those two boxes and go, well, who's going to help me get up there? But I can't reach that high, right? Good point. I like that you mentioned the higher end too. So we have students that, we have an entire spectrum of students, right? We have students who might have less knowledge coming in. We might have students who struggle with writing skills or reading comprehension. But then we have students at the high end who who were in all honors classes and went to top high schools and really have to take your class, but they really could test out of it, but they can't, right? So, but you got to challenge them too, right? So that's what's really cool about UDL, is that it goes both ways. It can definitely be useful for the whole spectrum of students that we have in our classes. Anyone else have a thought about these pictures? Tamara gave a good summary.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand what she was saying about having to climb up on the boxes, but my first thought about this was, even, in that last picture, even though the barrier is seemingly gone, they're still looking at things from different perspectives, because they're not at the same eye level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yes, can they see the whole thing? Well, I don't know. I think that's a little debatable, because the smallest guy might not can see as far to the other side of the field as the tallest guy,
Yeah. So, and I'll give you an example of working with students with disabilities on our campus, that a conversation I've had with events many times. So, for example, one time they wanted to, there was something with chapel. I can't remember, that it was something about the floor was closed, I think. And so students had to sit in the seats. And so they had reserved spots at the very top for our students in wheelchairs. Great. But our students in wheelchairs might want to be down at the bottom. So, it's like, okay, they have access. Yeah, they can see, but do they have the same access? And so, we've got classrooms like that. Look in Swang. Look in, there's certain classrooms. Swang 110 is the one that really drives me crazy, because the professors at the front, most of the students are probably going to go in the first, maybe middle rows, but a student in a wheelchair, they got to sit on the very back. So do you have students sit with them? And so that's a great point, Julia, that it's still, there's still a lot of factors there. Okay, so I like this picture for UDL, because the concept of universal design actually started in architecture. It started in, can anyone think of something in architectural design that maybe was built for someone with a disability, but we use it daily?
I know.
I know one.
What?
The little button to open the handicap doors, because I'm always carrying the bags.
Yeah.
So that little button is my friend every single time I go into a building.
Yep. You can hit it with your elbow. You can hit it with your hip. When your arms are full.
Well, now that we're in COVID, that's even better, because you don't have to touch it.
Exactly.
Use an elbow.
Very true. Can you think of anything else?
Well, buildings that have either stairs to navigate, or if they've got an optional ramp, most of the time I'm going to go on the ramp.
Yeah,
instead of the steps.
Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but I have horrible peripheral vision. So a mask really affects my vision even more. And going downstairs is actually a little scary for me. So I like to challenge myself by taking the stairs, but I've been taking the elevator a lot in ESL, because, our stairs are like incredibly steep here. And so it makes me a little nervous to go down the stairs with my mask, because I know I already have this bit. I mean, I have trouble with the stairs anyway, but with that mask there. So yeah, so those kinds of things. But you know, the ramps, but also curb cuts. Anyone ever rolled a cart or a suitcase or a bicycle or a stroller, you know, through one of those curb cuts? Those were really designed for people in wheelchairs, but we've all used them because they are useful to and meet our needs. And so that is the concept of architectural design, that if you design something that everybody can use it, then everybody has access. It's not about we have to build something special. You know, I always think about these old, I do a lecture on America's with Disabilities Act in my sped law class. And they're always really curious. We do a walk around campus and we look for ADA compliance, and y'all, Lipscomb's got some ways to go on ADA compliance. But part of it is because our buildings are so old. And so they didn't design buildings. And when they did add the ramp, they put them in the back. And so if you look at like Chrisman, you know, where's the ramp? It's in the back and it's incredibly steep. And so there's, you know, there's just things like that that now architectural design is a little bit better about thinking about, are the bathroom stalls wide enough? And are the, you know, is everything accessible for everyone? There, you know, there's rules about for people with vision impairments, for hearing impairments, for, you know, for everything as far as accessibility. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so we're gonna watch a little video. And you have, Hope emailed you a handout that is guided notes. Does everybody have that? And I want you to use the guided notes as we go through the video. And let's see. I bet I'm gonna have to do this. All right, tell me if you can see it. Okay. Can you hear it?
So let's say you're a teacher who needs to reach a curriculum goal, and you've got a diverse group of students. Well, so does this teacher. And this one. Most do. In fact, research shows that the way people learn is as unique as their fingerprints. What does this mean for teachers for today? Classrooms are highly diverse, and curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. Universal Design for Learning is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all students. For a better understanding, let's unpack the term Universal Design for Learning. First is the word universal. By universal, we mean curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. Each learner in the classroom brings his or her own background, strengths, needs, and interests. Curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunities for each and every student. Now let's think of the word learning. Learning is not one thing. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have three broad networks. One for recognition, the what of learning. One for skills and strategies, the how of learning. One for caring and prioritizing, the why of learning. Students need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and a curriculum needs to help them do all three. But every learner is unique, and one size does not fit all. So how do we make a curriculum that challenges and engages diverse learners? This is where the word design comes in. A universally designed building is planned to be flexible and accommodate for all kinds of users with and without disabilities. It turns out that if you design for those in the margins, your building turns out better for everyone. Curb cuts and ramps are used by people in wheelchairs, people with strollers, and people on bikes. Captioning on TV serves people who are deaf, people learning English, people in gyms, and spouses who get to sleep at different times. UDL takes this idea and applies it to the design of flexible curriculum. UDL goes beyond access because we need to build in support and challenge. So how do we use the UDL framework to make learning goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone? First, ask yourself, what is my goal? What do I want my students to know, do, and care about? Then ask, what barriers in the classroom might interfere with my diverse students' ability to reach these goals? To eliminate the barriers, use these 3 UDL principles to create flexible paths to learning so that each student can progress. Number 1, provide multiple means of representation. Present content and information in multiple media and provide varied supports. Use graphics and animation, highlight the critical features, activate background knowledge, and support vocabulary so students acquire the knowledge being taught. Number 2, provide multiple means for action and expression. Give students plenty of options for expressing what they know and provide models, feedback, and supports for their different levels of proficiency. Number 3, provide multiple means of engagement. What fires up one student won't fire up another. Give students choices to fuel their interest and autonomy. Help them risk mistakes and learn from them. If they love learning, they'll persist through challenges. And remember, always keep in mind the learning goal. Get rid of barriers caused by the curriculum and instead keep the challenge where it belongs. And that's it. Okay, quick recap. Show the information in different ways, allow your students to approach learning tasks and demonstrate what they learn in different ways, and offer options that engage students and keep their interest. Universal design for learning equals learning opportunities for all. For more information about UDL, go to www.cast.org.
Hold on. Started the next video. Okay, now I got 2 things. Double screen thing. All right. Hold on. Now what have I done? Okay, let's go back over here. All right. So I was going to pull up the notes. Have y'all used guided notes in a class before, or was that a new thing?
It was new to me.
Okay. What'd you think about it?
I didn't like it.
You didn't?
No.
Why? And that's
Because
fine.
I have to write. And it's like my students, they're always telling me, Miss Kay, we'd like to just sit down and listen to you and then be able to go back and fill in notes. So if I'm going to give them, I've got to make sure they have enough time to put down all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can see a lot of my students going, what?
Yeah.
And I would usually have to tell them rewatch it.
Yeah. So
Right.
what
Yeah.
could we have done differently to use the notes better? Like, how could you use them a little bit better in class?
Maybe show the film once and just say, just watch it. And then
Okay.
watch it again. Because it's short. It wasn't long
Right.
in length.
Good. Anyone else?
Well, I'm just going to say that she talked pretty fast. Like it would have helped me if she had a little bit slower pace in the way she talked.
Yeah. I agree. You also could give the notes first, talk through let them read through and know what they're going to look for, because again, it is a short video. And you also could pause the video at certain points and stop and discuss. I think that I guess what is a benefit of guided notes, either for lecture or for video sake?
They can come back and study it later.
Mhm.
Yeah. And let's see, was it Tuka who was our visual and written? Yes, visual and written and writing it down. So what were your thoughts on the guided notes, Tuka? Oh, you're muted.
Tuka, you're muted. There you go. Nope.
Nope.
Good.
No, we still can't hear
We
you.
still can't hear you.
We heard you. Didn't we hear her earlier?
Yes.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So these guided notes, what I was thinking is that I think it depends on what you're teaching. Like, for example, like before I came here, during my master's, I had to teach some biology labs. And so I feel guided notes would be like, it's pretty useful over there. But for a lecture, I'm not really sure. So I think it depends maybe on the subject and whether it's a lab, it's a lecture.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. And I think probably if I were using guided notes, I have one particular activity in my class that I use guided notes for, but it's optional. You know, they can use them or not. And I think that's the benefit of a strategy like this. Trying to watch our time. What time do we end, Hope? 11:40?
Yeah, usually like 11:50-ish.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to talk through, we're just going to kind of overview the different parts of UDL. And this is what over the next couple of, I don't even remember. I know we have one next week, and then we'll have more sessions. Is that after
In the
Christmas?
spring.
Spring,
Okay.
yeah, the other two.
Where we will actually spend the whole time on each one of these so that we can really dig deeper and hopefully really brainstorm some good ways of doing these in the college classroom. So Robbie, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. So as they explained in the video, UDL is broken into 3 primary parts. With engagement, we're looking at, making sure that students are truly, there's a purpose to how we are keeping them engaged, keeping them as a part of the lesson. Representation, how are they going to, show, how are we going to show the information that we are sharing with students? And then action and expression is where they have that choice in how they're going to express their learning. Misty, if you want to change.
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing. Yeah. Again, I like how they have a visual to go along with each item. If you're a brain person and you really like the brain and studying the brain, which I do, I find it fascinating. I love how they have highlighted the parts of the brain that particular concept of UDL is where it is in the brain. And so if you're a brain person and you think about the frontal lobe, and you're like, okay, how do I activate the frontal lobe? And so I just wanted to add that little because I like that they use the brain. And this is a great website, thecast.org, has lots of great information.
So with engagement, just think about if your activity is, you've asked a question and you are looking at different ways of getting students to respond. We've listed 4 options here. And I think probably all of you can think of those students in your classroom who each of these is either necessary for or better for. For one thing is you have students, you ask them to raise their hands and you call on someone. Well, I know in one of my classrooms, there's always going to be that one student who has their hand raised. They're going to be the first one. And if I always go with that raised hand, I'm going to be calling on the same person every single time. Or you can cold call. You've got those others, they understand the material, but they are not going to raise their hands. And so there are definitely times I will call on them. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to call on someone and they not have the information. So that's why we need to use multiple means. Response boards or cards. Misty demonstrated this at the beginning of our session today. That allows everyone to respond, not have the fear of being wrong. And then you as a teacher are going to be able to judge individually how each student is doing. And then at the end, students will have written answers down and you just collect those at the end of class. That gives you a lot more time to actually look through and dig into what each student may or may not know about the material.
Does anybody have a way you've done this differently or want to share an example about how you've done this in your class?
Well, we did a play. We've done a play in the past, I should say. And I usually tell the kids to walk in. I've got 21 numbers up on the board. And of course, some aren't going to be active in this. Well, they're going to act in different ways. But I tell them, put your name on the board. Of course, they think it's a requirement. And then once they've done that, I pass out the play. And it's basically about a young man who gets sucked into a cell, or so he thinks, and his adventure on trying to get out of that cell and all the organelles that he meets. So, but it's fun to watch them go through because some won't play along. They'll be really stiff, you know, and quiet, but I'll tell them, you know, speak out so everybody can hear you, or find somebody who's not signed up to take your place. And yeah, they get really involved, and it winds up being one of the more fun things they get to do.
Yeah.
Instead of me lecturing on cell organelles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anybody else?
What I was thinking is that sometimes, like, if you start a discussion in class and you start off with like bringing something familiar to them that they might know, and then just like starting it off as a discussion instead of asking all of a sudden just one question and waiting for them to reply, that might get them maybe more engaged and interested. And just like when someone answers maybe incorrect, that you know how to answer them, or you know, work around it, not say no, that's wrong or something.
Yes.
That would encourage other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, we have a new faculty member in our department this year, and we co-taught first term. And one of the things she said to me is, "You're so good at responding to students who answer incorrectly." And I said, "Yeah, that took practice, because that's really hard. You don't want to crush their little spirits, but you also are like, oh, I don't want anyone else to think that's the answer." So I usually use something like, "Would anyone like to add to that answer?" Or, "That's so close. Let's see if we can expand on it a bit," you know? So, but yeah, you're right. It's to have some things that you're going to say, to know, you know, how to respond is really, and I teach mostly grad students. And so it's a little bit easier because they're adults and they can handle it. But our undergrads in particular, they don't want to be wrong. And they, you know, that's why sometimes they're hesitant to answer in class. So is this the one, Hope, is this the one we do next week, is engagement?
Yes.
So one of the things that Hope and Julia have tasked Robbie and I to do is to make sure we include some of the online. So if you, like Tamara said, you have some on the computer and you have some in class. So we're going to work to have some ideas for engagement next week that also incorporate those of us who are teaching online or who are teaching in the flex model. So we will have more on that topic next week.
So for representation, going back to that lecture that you might be having and thinking about the world that we're living in, you can conduct that lecture face-to-face, as many of us are doing. I know personally that's my preference. I want them in front of me. I want to be able to engage with them right there and not have to worry about those who are behind me and in front of me and whose cameras are off. Drives me crazy, but I digress. And then you can have your Zoom lecture where it's live. We're, you know, that's what we're doing today. We're together, but we also, it's being recorded. So those individuals who couldn't join us, they can go back and see the Zoom version of this. And then option 4 would be just a video. So not actual lecture taking place, but just as we did before with the video on UDL, you could, do that in place of a lecture. So what other representation ideas have you guys seen?
This is obviously a pre-COVID picture.
Yes.
This is actually a pre-COVID slide. I just realized, like, oh yeah, we made this slide last year and now we do all these things.
Yeah. We just didn't realize how real it would be.
Yeah. I know that, and again, when we talk more about this topic, we'll discuss this. I know with representation, I know personally, I feel like if I don't tell the students in class, they may not get the information. And so that's been a real struggle for me in the last 10 years, is figuring out what mode can I present to them in so that they get the information. So this summer, the big challenge was, I taught way too many classes this summer. I had 5 classes, and I couldn't lecture that much. So I had to use more video. I did some video lectures. I had 3 of the same classes, so I could do a video and I could put it on each class. And so then I was saving my time, but also then being able to follow up with students and have discussion about the video they watched. I think there's always questions about, did they watch it? And how do you know if they're watching the material that you put out? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that too when we meet again. All right, and the last one.
Last one, action and expression. This is where students are going to be able to give back to you what they have learned and what they know. So if you've got an assignment, you've told students to read an article and then they're going to write a review. Pretty standard way of doing it, but we want to give them options. And so the first option might be that they can write a summary. The second option, they can create a PowerPoint showing you the things that they've learned and summarizing, or creating a video. Particularly as technology has changed and the options available to our students, it's created a lot more opportunities. We've got the Flipgrid symbol there. I personally have started using Flipgrid a lot more with my students. One assignment in several of my classes, they have to read a book. In one class, it's a book on diversity themes. In another class, it's a book on people with disabilities. And then they used to write a book report, the old standard, read the book, write the book report. And I've changed that assignment. And now I actually require them to share that book with their classmates, but they cannot write a book report. Now they have lots of other opportunities to write reports, but for this particular assignment, it's, what other ways can you share with us? And I have had so much fun this semester in my cultural perspectives class, just seeing the many different ways that students share what they have learned. And it's obvious that they truly understand the important aspects of the book. So it's an exciting thing for students. Who else has things that they've done for action and expression?
I'll share an example just because I'm teaching a grad class for College of Ed that started yesterday, but we talk about learning menus in there. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same objective, but they kind of like, some of them are like tic-tac-toe. And so it provides some options, but giving them some options. I also like using Flipgrid, the video, and kind of doing as one option for kind of journal reflection on thoughts, instead of just having the written, they choose, sometimes some students choose to write a summary of whatever we're reading, but also having some video. And then they like to record themselves talking to each other on the Flipgrid as well and giving feedback.
Great, thanks.
I love Flipgrid. I use that all summer too, and students seem to really like it. So I used to have an assignment where they would present a PowerPoint on a disability topic, and just because online presentations are hard, and it was a 1-month class, so time was short. I just had them do a commercial for their presentation. So they had to do the PowerPoint, post the PowerPoint for everyone to see, but then they went on Flipgrid and they did a 5-minute commercial about their presentation. And that was pretty cool. And some of them really got into it, like really sold the idea of coming to their PD session. So that was pretty fun. So I'm learning as I incorporate more of the UDL strategies that it's actually making my teaching more fun, and more engaging for me to, as well. Because as Robbie said, book reports, we've all done it, but it's certainly not fun to read the book report. So it's much more fun to grade, some other assignments. So, well, we are out of time. And so we'll save our case studies for our follow-up sessions, actually, that'll work really well. And so, of course, another strategy I was going to model is an exit ticket, and something you can do in your class. And I've done exit tickets online with the chat, or send me a quick email, or write a discussion post, for an exit ticket when I'm not in person. I do this a lot when I am in person, have them write something that they learned. So, and then there are some resources if you want to start digging in and learning more about UDL. And then there's also a book that's available that is called Reach Everyone, Teach Everyone, Universal Design for Learning in Higher Ed. And I know there are a few copies in the CTL, so maybe those can be borrowed or checked out or something. But so we look forward to future conversations. Are there any final questions? That was kind of a quick overview, but thank y'all for being here and participating.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the overview, and I'm excited to dig into each of these and really, like as Missy said, kind of brainstorming ideas, especially in this new modality that we're all teaching in, because that's what we're about halfway through, and it's like I'm ready for some new ideas to kind of refresh and get through the second half of the semester. So thank you both for sharing today.
Yep, sure thing. Happy to do it. Thanks for asking us. All right, bye everyone.
For the presentation.
Thank you. Hope to see y'all next week.
Thank you.
See y'all next week. Have a great rest of your day.